All right. We had around 15, I want to say, to sign up. So I'm just going to wait a little bit longer for a couple more people to join. We're right at 7 people. So.
Okay.
Oops. All right. Just gonna wait for a couple more attendees to join us and we will get started. All right. Get one more person to start. All right. We're about 8 after, so I want to be respectful of you guys' time. I know everything's been going by so quickly during this crazy time that we've been in. So I'm actually going to go ahead and get started just to be respectful of everyone's time. Welcome everybody to Pivoting Your Business with Communication and Public Relations. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Christine Edwards, and you should see visible on your screen, we have our featured guest today is Nepheterra Best, and we'll get to all of that good conversation in a moment. And you'll also see on your screen Lakeisha Orr. She's going to be our technical assistant today. So if you have any questions about what's going on with Zoom, any service questions, or if you have a question for us, please let Lakeisha know. And then if you do have questions throughout the conversation, you should see at the bottom of your screen or your phone, there is a Q&A function. So if you have specific questions for Nepheterra, we would love for you to put that in the Q&A rather than the chat. Okay, but we want you to utilize the chat throughout the conversation just to, get to know one another. But when it comes to the Q&A, go ahead and put that in the Q&A function. All right, what else do I need to cover before we dive in? So, all right. So before I, sort of get into our conversation today, I actually want to talk about who we are. Who is Amplify and what we do and what we offer and why we're doing this today. So we were actually supposed to have a live event. Speaking of pivoting, we were actually supposed to have a live event this past weekend on April 25th, and we had 3 rockstar panelists that were going to be, our keynotes for the event. And so what we ended up doing was, of course, we had to pivot like everybody else. We split that up and made it into 3 different events so that we can go a little bit deeper with each speaker. And the reason that I was going to even have the live event in the first place was to kind of branch out into this different arm of my company, which is focused around small business certifications. So just to take a step back, my company is called Amplify Consulting, LLC. We were founded in the summer of 2018, and we operate under the brand Amplify Charlotte. So Amplify Charlotte, we are a social impact firm, and we help communities grow with dignity through community engagement workshops, training events, online resources. Again, like I said, we also help other small businesses gain access to these public sector clients through the contract bidding process. And y'all, just talking about pivoting, I was listening to a podcast this morning as I was preparing for the workshop, and the host is an entrepreneur. The podcast is called the Courtney L. Sanders Show, and she's kind of a financial coach and a business coach. And y'all, she said that through the month of April, she filed 7 LLCs in her state and she created a holding company, all while she was working from home, okay? And do you know why that is? That's because the government compliance officers are also working from home, okay? And so these processes that often take months, weeks, sometimes a year, it's been, I'm not going to say it's been quicker, but for some it's been quicker. So if you have some of those foundational things that you really have wanting to get done for your business, like renewing your LLC or filing, legitimizing and creating your legal entity in the first place, now is a great time to do that. I'm all about public sector. I'm all about government. So that's my thing, right? So when she said she started 7 LLCs in the month of April, that just really, I just wanted to share that. The next thing I wanted to share before we jump in is, I know you guys have been watching the news about all of the funding and the relief that is supposed to be coming. But I also know that you've been reading about how minority-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses have been, sort of shut out. And for some of the same reasons that happened before Corona, right? Before COVID, it are some of the same things that are preventing Black-owned businesses from getting access to this information. And a lot of it has to do with the foundational elements of your business. Are you a legal entity? Are you certified? Have you kept your tax records? Do you work with a banker? And so those are some of the things that, we've run into. And here's the thing, the SBA, they fumbled the ball, okay? The SBA knows they need to be making sure that the right companies and the companies that need it have access to this information. So they fumbled, so guess what? We're gonna pick it right back up, all right? So that's what I wanna talk to you all about today. In particular, the 2 certifications that I and my company that can help you get certified for are called the SBE, and that is the certifying agency is the City of Charlotte. SBE is Small Business Enterprise. And the reason that they created this is because they set aside money for minority businesses in these public contracts. And the second one is called the Hub. The Hub is a state level certification. The state of North Carolina is a certifying agency. And Hub stands for Historically Underutilized Business. Essentially what that means is that you identify as a minority, you own the majority of your for-profit business, and you are the owner and operator of your for-profit business. You also have to meet SBA side standards, which most of us meet. You have to make under $750,000 annually in your business in order to be a small business. So these are the 2 certifications that I can help you with, and we're going to have some more detailed information about those later on in the presentation. Real quick, so I told you about who we are, I told you about who I am, and this is, how to say social proof, right? So again, this is how I got into this. One of the first real opportunities that I got in 2019 was with Center City Partners. We're in the process of doing a park redesign, and the project budget was budgeted at, this includes construction, 3.4 million. Okay, and so me as a subcontractor, they subcontracted the amount of 15K. And if you can keep your overhead low, you can think about how you can, make that work for you in your business model. Second opportunity, bam, bam, 2 opportunities right off the bat. And so that's why I want to encourage you guys to learn more about these opportunities and just look at it as a way to diversify your portfolio. All right, that's enough about me. But again, if you have any questions at all about the stuff that I'm talking about or that Nepheterra is going to talk about, please do put it in the Q&A. I just saw one pop up, so we'll get to that shortly. All right, so I actually want you guys to get to know one another. We are going to do a little short networking activity, and then we're going to go into our live convo. We're going to do some Q&A, and then we're just going to move right on along. All right. So the networking portion, this is why I asked you guys for your information in the registration form. So being a small business owner, it's so important to get your name out there and get the name of your company out there. And I'm trying to play around with some different virtual icebreakers, but you guys bear with me. So if you are in the chat and your name is listed on here, I want you to go to the participant function and raise your hand. And if you all signed up ahead of time, then, oh, okay, I see one. I see one person's hand, oh, two. All right, I think, okay, great, great, great. Okay, so it looks like we have a couple more people joining us. And so you have raised your hand. Now what I want you to do, brave souls, is to just type in the chat why you're here today, and tell the chat room a little bit about your business or your organization that you're representing. And I'm glad to see some familiar faces and some familiar names in here. So we're going to take about 90 seconds to do that, and I'm going to put the music back on. Okay, I encourage you, go ahead and get active. Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Other folks, I encourage you to introduce yourselves as well. Aliana says home values will go down after COVID. All right. Look, me and you need to talk. All right. Thank you so much for doing that little bit of networking. I encourage you all to, you have your information here. I encourage you to find each other on LinkedIn. And when I send out the recording, you can find one another on LinkedIn as well. All right. Thank y'all for doing that. We're going to go ahead and shift gears. Go back over here. All right. Oh, hi, Sam. Thanks for introducing yourself. Awesome. Oh, Sam is a good person to know. He, when you talk about access to capital, when it comes to nonprofits, he's definitely somebody to know, working with the United Way of Central Carolinas. All right. Thank y'all for doing that. So I'm going to give Miss Nepheterra Best a proper introduction. And I'd like to actually tell you all a little bit about the organization that she helped to co-found. So I'm going to read a little bit about Pride Public Relations. Pride Public Relations is an award-winning full-service public relations agency where creativity is nurtured, results are celebrated, and effective public relations campaigns are developed. They have more than 2 decades of experience in public relations, advertising, and branding. Some of their notable clients include Charlotte Water, Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, Girl Scouts, the City of Charlotte, the City of Milwaukee, Pride Magazine, of course, Aparo, an IT nonprofit, Charlotte Housing Authority, formerly known as Charlotte Housing Authority, Walmart, and Wells Fargo. Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you guys can see Miss Nepheterra Estrada Best is a successful entrepreneur and public relations professional, the co-founder of 2 full-service PR agencies with offices in Charlotte and Milwaukee. Nepheterra is passionate about building authentic brands and getting results for her firm's clients. During her 15-year career, she successfully managed public relations campaigns in more than 25 industries, including financial services, healthcare, retail, real estate, government, and entertainment. Her resume includes working with organizations like the American Cancer Society, the Girl Scouts Hornets Nest Council in Livian, formerly known as the Charlotte Housing Authority, City of Charlotte, etc., etc., etc. Leadership is in her DNA. Her passion is contagious. Her energy is infectious. She is a proud active member of the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce and has worked closely with the Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce as well. She has earned degrees in communication from Johnson C. Smith, and she recently received a MicroMasters in strategic innovation. All right, thank you all, and well, let's welcome Nepheterra Best. All right, snap. All right, so welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really good. Thank you for being here. So I guess the way that I like to do this is I have some discussion questions to guide the conversation, but if the spirit moves you to speak about a certain topic, please feel free.
Okay, will do.
All right, so the first question is just tell us about your journey to becoming the Chief Communications Officer of Pride PR.
Okay, sure. I would love to. And first of all, I just want to thank you, Christine. Thank you for your leadership, for putting this series together. I really admire your spirit of the pivot. I hate we couldn't be together last weekend for the actual event, but I think it's great that you're doing this virtually. So thank you for doing this. A little bit about me, as you mentioned, I am a graduate of Johnson C. Smith University. While I was there in the late 90s, which is a long time ago, I interned at the Charlotte Observer. At that time, Pride magazine was owned by the Charlotte Observer, and it was and still is Charlotte's only African-American magazine. It celebrates and really just highlights amazing things happening in the African-American community here in Charlotte. So at that time, it was owned by the Observer. I interned at the Observer for Pride magazine, and at that time, the woman who is now my business partner she was my boss. So I interned for her. She was really my first professional mentor. And so it's amazing how things in life come around full circle. So after graduating, I moved to Milwaukee, worked as a reporter, got some experience in the newsroom, and then I transitioned into public relations and have been doing that ever since. I worked at a few agencies in Milwaukee before founding my first firm there with two other women called Mosaic Communications. And then in 2008, I moved back to Charlotte because it's very cold in Wisconsin. It snows a lot. And so I moved back to Charlotte, and Dee Dixon and I officially launched Pride PR at that time.
Awesome. Okay, great. And I'm curious because I did not know that you had experience in the newsroom.
Yes.
Do you miss it at all?
No. When I was in college, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be a reporter. That was just in my spirit. I didn't want anything to do with public relations, so that's funny. But it really was a great way for me to transition into PR, just because a lot of times what we're doing for clients, as you know, Christine, is really putting on our news hat and trying to figure out, okay, what is the story here? And so having that experience from the newsroom and knowing how fast-paced newsrooms are, knowing what they're looking for and how they operate, that definitely has been beneficial and something that I've been able to use in my public relations career to benefit my clients.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can imagine having the experience of being a reporter / journalist and then being a PR person. So you know both sides of the coin.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly.
That's a great segue. And I didn't know if you had anything sort of prepared, but can you talk about your tips for maintaining a strong brand?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think that's a great question. Some things I will share are things that we share with our clients all the time. And the first tip that I would say is communicate often. I think that especially it ranges even for our small businesses, even to our larger companies that we work with. Sometimes they just don't do a great job of telling their story. They're doing amazing work. And because they're so close to it, sometimes they don't see it how we see it. So we encourage our clients to be proactive, tell their story in a meaningful way so that they're able to connect with their target audiences. And especially during this time of COVID-19, we're telling folks, I know it's scary. We know things are uncertain, but don't contract, communicate. tell your story, be intentional. So that's my first tip, is definitely communicate, whether that's through social media, whether that's through launching a blog, whether that's through a full-blown advertising campaign. It really just depends on your budget. But regardless of what your budget is, large or small, there are opportunities to communicate, and we encourage folks to do just that.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, and kind of piggybacking on that, is doing it often. I think that, sometimes companies will do a big splash about a launch or some big newsworthy event, and then you don't hear from them anymore. So what we try to tell our clients is communicate, first of all, and then communicate consistently. So, do what you can, whether it's once a month or it's once every 2 months. Make sure that you're doing something to get your story out there, to make sure that you're on the radar screen among your target audience. And just encouraging people to think about that, because I think sometimes we're so busy getting the work done that we don't really think about that external piece and how we're positioning and presenting our brands outside of our organizations.
Yes, absolutely. Consistency is so important. But at the same time, do you think that over communicating or communicating inappropriately could hurt your brand? I'm thinking about some of these bigger brands that maybe they took some of the PPP funding, and I use the word took, right? They they applied for it and they kept this funding. Some of them gave it back. But what do you think about, restructuring that kind of a communication in a way to kind of save a brand?
Yeah, well, I think that it definitely is a case by case basis. And
Mm-hmm.
trust me, when I saw that Ruth Chris got some of the PPE funding, I fell out of my chair. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. But I do think, again, even in that case, on the flip side of that, Ruth Chris is a big employer. There's a lot of jobs and things like that. So I feel like on the other side of that, that could be an opportunity for them to communicate, why did you apply for that funding? Help us really understand,
Right.
you're saving this many jobs. You are a fairly big taxpayer, so perhaps that's part of the story. I would love to see them respond, or I haven't seen anything yet other than falling out of my chair and hearing the news about them getting it. But I think too, even when you're in a tough spot, and as long as there's no legal ramifications, of course, I think that if you can tell your story, more than likely it will benefit you, even if it's something that is not so pleasant. I think that if you're able to connect with people, if Ruth Chris was able to get one of their servers, and put that person out there, or just say, hey, because of this funding, I'm able to get paid and I can pay my rent, then that speaks to me. Then I can say, maybe I'm not so upset about it. But if you don't do that, then I just come up with my own narrative like the rest of us do, and we just think that they're scamming the system. So for our small businesses, we know that it can be a little different than big corporations that have huge communications departments and all of that. So we just try to really push our small businesses and our nonprofits to really be intentional about communicating, because what we have found is that most of them have amazing stories and they're doing this great work in the community, but people don't know.
Right.
And so if people don't know about you, that means you're not going to get funding. That means, you're not going to get volunteers. I mean, it just has a trickle down effect. So we think in this landscape, especially right now with COVID-19, that there are opportunities in this season of what I'm calling the season of pause. There are so many opportunities to communicate. So we're just, that's kind of my talking point. I just want to encourage everyone to do that in some shape or form.
Some shape or form. I totally agree with you. I think that where we intersect, where Pride PR and where Amplify could intersect, of course, is the community engagement aspect.
Yes.
And so you talked about maybe having, with the Ruth's Chris example, maybe having an employee get on video and say, hey, this is my story. Or maybe even from a community standpoint, how can Ruth Chris give back, right? If they're able to keep their doors open, then how can they package up some of those nice steaks and ship them out, put them on delivery, deliver them to communities in need. And so just to pivot a little bit, can I ask you a question about community engagement?
Yes.
And how does that differ from the communication and PR? and then how can small businesses use it to their advantage?
Okay, so we do a lot of community engagement in different ways. So we do a lot on the government side. We work with the city of Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
We work with Charlotte Water, and we have several other government clients. And so that means a lot of public meetings, a lot of focus groups, online surveys, and things like that. And how the two connect, to answer your question, Christine, is that oftentimes we take the information we learn from that community engagement piece to
Mm-hmm.
inform our communication strategy. So a lot of times companies will jump out there with a campaign or with some sort of communications, and they kind of think they know how to talk to their target audience, but how do you really know if you don't have those conversations with people that buy your product or utilize your service? So right before COVID-19 hit, we actually did several focus groups in West Charlotte about our client Walmart. So just the good, the bad, the ugly. We wanted to know, what's working, what's not, how can we improve? And it was specifically related to the Wilkinson Boulevard store, which does have some challenges, but also has a lot of opportunity as well.
Yeah.
And so it was very interesting. I think sometimes when you're at the corporate level, you kind of think, well, this is what people perceive us to be, or this is what they think about our brand, but it never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
On the small business side, Pride Magazine actually partnered with Novant a few months ago and did some focus groups with the African American community in Charlotte. And it actually turned into a special issue of the magazine. And so it was just really trying to get a better understanding of what African Americans are experiencing in our market. Again, the good, the bad, the ugly, and just really candid, honest conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that information is helpful absolutely to the magazine, but also to Novant Health, who services a lot of African American patients. And so just really getting a better understanding. So I think that the two work hand in hand. I truly love community engagement work. I love getting people together and just getting like the honest, candid feedback. And what we found lately, because of coronavirus and COVID-19, is we're shifting everything to virtual. So we're doing some work with the City of Charlotte's 2040 plan, for example, and we had a bunch of public meetings scheduled for this month, next month, through the end of the year. And so now we're pivoting and everything is going to be online and it's going to be virtual. So that will be different, right? But we're still hoping to be able to engage people and to find out from them, what do they want to see Charlotte look like in the next 20 years? If we're talking about 2040, what's important? So even though we can't meet with them in person, their input is still so valuable because it will ultimately inform that plan and help inform decisions that will be made about where investments will go in our city. So, the community engagement piece is very important, but in a perfect world, it should come before you actually start to communicate, if the budget allows.
Yes, I agree. And you're right about the budget piece. But I think what you said about community engagement informing your communication strategy is so important, because we often are going after certain audiences and we're making assumptions about what audiences want and what they need. Yes. Instead of asking people like, hey, is this of use to you? A good example, I think, is of course, with the situation that we're in, with a lot of these small businesses trying to gain access to funding, a lot of our Spanish speaking neighbors are having an even harder time because of the lack of translation services and the lack of information that's available in Spanish. And so when you talk about, oh, we want to do this outreach to the Hispanic community and the Spanish speaking community, you need to make sure that you have an audience for that first. You can't just say, hey, we want to do a Latinx outreach event and we're going to have this translator, but you don't even know if you're going to have folks in the audience who need a Spanish language translation.
Oh, that's right. Or we have had clients where they want to do that and then they have them call a number, but if they call and there's no one that can speak Spanish on the phone, then what have we really accomplished, right?
Right. So it's a matter of getting to know your audience prior to developing these communication plans for them and on their behalf. And I see somebody has their hand raised. Oh, maybe that was from earlier. Let me go ahead and lower all the hands. Okay. Now seems like a good time to answer one of the questions. And then after we answer this one question, we'll hop back into the conversation.
Okay.
Oh, what the question was, what was the name of that podcast?
I was
Yeah.
curious about that too.
Yeah, no problem. It is called the Courtney L. Sanders Show.
Courtney L. Sanders. Okay.
Yeah, and she used to go by a different name, the Think and Grow Chick, because she was focused around, Think and Grow Rich. It's a play on words. But anyway, I listened to her show. It's pretty good. All right. So we talked a little bit about public sector clients, and I would like your experience, just give us a little bit about your experience, both the opportunities and the challenges of working with the public sector.
Okay, absolutely. And what I will say, it's so funny you're asking me that. I just had a conversation the other day because folks are calling and saying, hey, Neff, how's your business? What's going on? And I definitely appreciate folks checking in. I have a lot of friends that are also entrepreneurs and small business owners, so we absolutely have to check on each other. But we were talking about the importance of having a diverse client base. And so that includes, different industries, but I definitely encourage people to think about their client base and the diversity of their client base when it comes to like government versus corporate versus nonprofit and small business. And so I don't really know how I stumbled into government clients. My very first one was in Milwaukee. I was working with the city of Milwaukee, which is my hometown. It's where I'm from originally. And we've done a ton of work with them. And so they've just been a great partner. And since then, it's just kind of evolved. We've done work, obviously, with the city of Charlotte. We've done things with Mecklenburg County. I enjoy actually doing government work. And in this time of COVID-19, I'm so thankful that we have government clients because the work still has to be done. And so I'm very thankful for that. Obviously, we're doing it differently and it looks differently, but it still is moving forward, and even in this uncertain time. And so I will say that I encourage people to explore the opportunity to work with your local government at the city level or at the county level or even at the state level. What really helped us get into that space is our certifications. So I know you talked a little bit about that earlier. So we have our SBE certification with the city of Charlotte. We're hub certified with the state. And actually right now, during this season of pause, as I'm calling it, we're doing our DBE certification, which will qualify at the federal level. And so we like our certifications. We try to utilize them as best we can. I think some people kind of question, well, do I really need that? Or is it really going to bring value? And so I get that too, but I can just say from our experience, our certifications have definitely been a strong tool in our toolkit, right? I'm not saying it's the only way that we get business, but it has been a tool that we're able to use to go after RFPs and to get put on teams that go after very large contracts. So the government sector, I think the good news is that they're spending money and you're going to get paid, right? So that is all good. On the downside, there is a lot of red tape sometimes, and sometimes, politics can get in there. So you have to know how to navigate. And depending on the government or municipality, sometimes they're not the quickest to pay, but the money is coming. You just have to kind of wait it out sometimes. But just like with anything, there's good and bad. But I have a good friend who is, he has a staffing company here in Charlotte, and he was so excited. The city just let out an RFP a couple weeks ago. He was like, Neff, I'm going after this RFP.
Yeah, do it.
He hasn't done it before, and I'm encouraging him. I'm like, go. But I think that there are opportunities out there. If your company isn't big enough to go after a contract as a prime, and in all honesty, we hardly ever go after anything as a prime. We're always on a team, and we've built great relationships with other communications agencies, with engineering and architecture firms, because a lot of those RFPs still have a communications piece on it. We have one engineering firm that just puts us on every team they go after in Charlotte, and if they win, they just call us and say, hey, we won. We're like, okay, well, what do you need us to do? But that has been a long, it's like a 10-year relationship that we built with them. So I will say, even if you're small, find some good partners, find some folks that you can work well with, and find some teams that maybe you bring value to. They do one thing and you do another, and go together and team up, get on a team and go after some of these RFPs, because the opportunities are definitely out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So what I heard was the benefits or the opportunities is that the opportunities are always there. Government does not stop working. And you can count on that. If you do have a signed contract with a government client, you can count on that. That income, if it's on your contract. So those are really the opportunities there. And the last opportunity that I heard, there's any number of industries and needs and products, vendors that they need. So those are three big opportunities. And the challenges that I heard, of course, the payment, schedule is sometimes net 30, after you invoice, net 60,
Probably net 60,
net 90. But, the return on investment, right?
Right.
The return on investment is there and you can sort of count on it. So it's a great way to diversify your clientele. Thank you for sharing that. And then another one sort of challenge that I heard was it's just really about making relationships. And that doesn't have to be a challenge. I think that can be an opportunity too, is going out and creating these relationships with the primes. Just to give you an example, I'm sure you probably saw this opportunity come across as well. There was something recently that an out-of-state firm reached out to Amplify and said, hey, we found you online. We saw that you were certified and you specialize in community engagement. Why don't you just, we want to add you to our proposal team.
That's right.
And these are firms from Boston, Illinois, all of these different places, but they have a presence here in Charlotte because Charlotte is a booming economic town, in case you didn't know. And so, they found us online and said, hey, send us your information. We'd love you to join our team. And this was for the environmental plan review.
Oh, okay.
And so that's HUD. That's HUD. That's HUD money. And I don't want to get too much into that, but that's definitely an opportunity. I've also seen a lot of CATS RFPs come through. CATS is continuing to not rebrand, but they're continuing to look at their marketing and branding, and they're continuing to look at their routes. So again, CATS, any kind of public agency, colleges, schools.
That's right.
All of these public agencies. So yeah, those are the challenges and opportunities in the public sector. My last question, because we're right around 15 minutes left, okay. I want to get your takeaways, right? I want to get your takeaways from the COVID-19 pandemic, where we are now. We just got through an entire month of it. It's the end of the month. Mm-hmm. I want to get, what is your takeaway and what is your reflection after a month in this as a business owner?
Yeah. My takeaways are, I will say I have three. So the first one would be, make sure you have a good banker, lawyer, and accountant. I think that in times like these, those three people become very important. And if you don't have one, it's okay. This is the perfect time. If you have some time right now during this COVID situation to look for those three services, then now's the time to do that. But I think that, even for like the PPE funding and the SBA loans and all of those things, I mean, you have to have your house in order. And so I think that those three people, I'm just reminded of how important they are. So I just encourage small business owners and entrepreneurs to make sure that you have those three folks close by, because you just need them in business in general. My other takeaway is, don't be afraid to pivot and to innovate. I think that sometimes we're so used to doing things the same way that we get comfortable, we get complacent. But I mean, coronavirus has definitely thrown us all for a loop. So I think that the other thing that I've learned is that you have to be open to the pivot, right? There's power in the pivot. And, think about if your business is impacted by this, think about other services, other products? What else can you do? What else can you provide in this season that could bring value? I was on Instagram the other day, and one of the media personalities I follow, she said, she was talking about her hair because none of us can get our hair done.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that a hair company, a hair company, a beauty salon in Atlanta had put together, right before everything shut down, they put together a quarantine kit for hair.
Whoa.
And it had like Nairobi hair foam. It had like the white strips to go around your edges. And I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but I'm just saying,
Oh, this is great.
how smart is that, right? So your business is about to get shut down. So what do? You think about, okay, what are the products that people are going to need during this time? Put it together, package it up, and I guess they were selling them on Amazon or some, and I guess out of the shop. I was like, that is brilliant. So I think that all of us can learn from that. What is it that we can do? Our company, we do some events, and so some things have been canceled. But what we've been able to do is kind of reposition, pivot. We've been able to put together a webinar series actually and secure a sponsor from one of the larger companies in town. So would we be doing that? Were we doing that before coronavirus? Were we even thinking about a sponsored webinar series? No, but I'm kind of glad, that we are thinking about that now. I think that coronavirus is forcing us all to just kind of get creative and think outside of the box. So that's another takeaway. The other takeaway is, just don't quit. I think that this can be an overwhelming time. I mean, in the big scheme of things, people have lost their jobs, they've lost their businesses, or, they're being adversely impacted. So it is a stressful time. And, it can make you feel like, you know what, I throw my hands up, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So my other takeaway is just a message of encouragement. Push through this. We will get through this together. Don't quit. Take this time on this season of pause to get things in order so that you can come out of this time better. Because it is just a pause. I mean, it's not like, I was talking to someone else the other day and we were saying, well, thank goodness the Lord pressed pause and didn't press stop. So it is a pause. But when it's time to go again, I truly believe that we'll be able to see who put in the work during this season, right? If you're getting your house in order, if you're getting your certifications together, if you're lining up your attorney, your CPA, putting your dream team together, when it's time to get back to work and we get back to whatever the new normal is going to be, you'll be well positioned to win. So we should, my prayer is that we all come out of this better, stronger, a little kinder, and a little smarter. So that will be my third takeaway is just don't quit.
Wow. That's powerful. Thank you. That is powerful. I mean, you definitely want to stay encouraged. It's hard, sometimes it's easier said than done, but that's why we got to stay connected. We got to stay connected with one another. We got to continue to check in on one another. We're going to pivot to questions, but I did want to give a couple of examples of businesses that have pivoted. So earlier today, I actually write for Q City Metro because multiple income streams, and I'm a freelance writer. And so we published an article about 3 businesses and their pivots. One of them was a Segway bike and walking tour company. These are Black businesses. She does walking tours and bike tours of town. She's going to pivot by doing proper social distancing, gloves, masks, everything. And then she also has a small retail shop where she's getting plexiglass installed just to make sure that germs are not being circulated and not affecting her employees. So she's pivoted in her business. The second example is a video producer. He does video. He does larger projects, but he also does smaller projects in social media advertising. All of his large video projects, well, most of them got canceled because he couldn't get on site to shoot video, but he was able to pivot, and now 100% of his company is in his social media advertising and digital marketing, and he's gotten 3 new clients.
Wow.
On the social media side, like YouTube commercials, Facebook commercials, things like that, locally here in Charlotte. So that's the way he pivoted. The third example is a nail studio. So of course, we love to get our hair and our nails done, and the nail shops and the salons and the restaurants were the first to go. So how she pivoted is she's going to be selling nail sets, like press on and glue on nail accessories and manicure kits on the website. So she has pivoted to e-commerce. So those are some examples of how you can switch it up and just get creative in your business. We're going to move to the chat, and I encourage you all to just keep placing your questions in there. Excuse me, we're not going to move to the chat. We're going to move to the Q&A. Aliana says, how do you find good partners? So when it comes to, I'm assuming this is when it comes to finding good partners for proposal teams.
Mm-hmm. On the government side, one way that we have found good partners is by attending pre-bid meetings. So as you know, Christine, oftentimes for different RFPs or different contracts, they will have meetings where anyone who's interested in going after these RFPs can kind of come and learn more and ask questions. And a lot of times the larger firms are there, and it's great for networking, just to kind of hand out your card and get to meet people. But again, choosing a partner is like choosing a husband. It can be intense. And so, you know, we've been lucky where we've been doing it long enough, and we can have a spirit of discernment, I suppose, a little bit, but have really found some great partners. So I think definitely going to pre-bid meetings once things get back to normal, or possibly even doing some research on the City of Charlotte's website. I mean, they have a list of firms that they work with. They have a list of certified firms. There's a wealth of information there. So even if you wanted to we've emailed organizations off of that list in the past and just said, hey, you know, this is who we are. This is what we do. Let us know, you know, if we can hop on an introductory call and just kind of get to know each other better. So I think, you know, those are some simple ways to do it. And then too, just look at who is in your orbit. I think sometimes we don't really realize the value of our network. So there may be some folks in your network that are doing some business or providing a service or selling a product that your company may be able to add value to. So think about that too. You know, write out a list of different individuals in your network that either work at organizations. If they work at a big company, maybe they know someone on the inside that's in procurement, or that works in a specific department that could be beneficial to you, and they'd be willing to make an introduction. So I think, you know, you can't be shy. You're going to hear no's, you're going to get rejected, and that's fine, but you have to be in it to win it. So I would just say, again, don't quit. You know, try to be creative. I know that, you know, there probably aren't going to be a lot of pre-bid meetings right now, but I think there are some virtual things happening on the government side. And then often they will email out the list of attendees for meetings after the fact. So you can literally get the people's contact information. They have their phone number and their email address. And we have literally called people on a project who attended the meeting and said, hey, you know, we know you were there. We didn't get to meet you, but, you know, this is what we do. Let us know, you know, if there might be a potential partnership opportunity. And you would be surprised how many people say yes, because they're looking for partners, but sometimes they aren't successful at it either. So the need is there. So don't be afraid to reach out.
Absolutely. There are a couple of pre-bid meetings that are being held virtually. So if you could, you know, register for one and just kind of be a fly on the wall and just hear the conversation, you know, so that you can just learn the language. And I know we're talking, you know, kind of in depth, kind of technical, but we had the learn the language conversation last week with LaPronda. And so we're going to air that recap after next week. And so there are a lot of local organizations that can give you that foundational level of how to get in the room when it comes to get certified. Like, for example, the City of Charlotte Business Inclusion, SCORE,
yes,
Small Business Technical Development Center. And so just kind of sign up for those newsletters and learn the language. And, you know, also prior to, let me rephrase that. So when you signed up, I actually had an email send people who signed up a resource that we created called 6 Key Elements of an RFP. Ooh. And so you should get that in your inbox. And if you didn't, let me know and I can send it to you. But everybody who signed up through the Zoom registration got that automatically. And so I'm, you know, consistently just trying to get that language in front of people. So we're running short on time. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. We're running short on time, so I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to share my screen one last time. I encourage you guys, again, if you have questions, go ahead and post them before we close for the day. This is just my last slide. I want you to keep in touch. Join our community. Sign up for the mailing list if you're not already on there. Go ahead and go on the website and purchase that DIY small business certification resource. Right now, it's just $30. And for everybody that is on the webinar today, I'm going to keep that discount up for probably the next few days. It won't last very long, so please go and take a look at that resource. And this is what it looks like right here on the right-hand side. This photo on the left-hand side, that's a flyer for our part 3 of 3 live conversation. And we're going to be talking to Dr. Christian Friend. He is the president and CEO of CA Friend Consulting, and he does a lot, strategic planning, diversity and inclusion, crucial conversations, and leadership coaching. So I really encourage you guys to join us for that next week. I saw one thing pop up in the chat. All right. Oh, thank you, Denise. So yeah, so this is what it's all about. I really just encourage you guys to go on the website and just browse around. Go ahead and sign up for our event next week. And thank you, Nepheterra. Do you have any closing comments or closing conversation?
No, again, thank you, Christine, for your leadership and your innovation. Thank you for doing this. I will definitely be tuning in for your next one. Yeah, please feel free to share my information with anyone. If there's anything that I can do, if I can be a resource or help in any way, please know that I am more than willing to do that. So yeah, that's really all I have.
Okay, so you're okay with us sharing your information?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. So we'll send out an email with the recap, and we'll share your information in the email.
Okay, awesome.
All right, well, thank you, and you have a great day and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye, y'all. End meeting.